Good evening. I'm Leanne Lohman. Welcome to the Steelers Sanctuary podcast. I'm joined tonight by David Korb, Dave Ribeiro, Bob Quinn, and Zach Franciscus. And we are here to talk about the Steelers' colossal 27-14 win over the Cleveland Browns yesterday at Acrisure Stadium. This was I know all week Mike Tomlin was like drilling into the players that this wasn't like a get back game, that this was a get better game. And so you can call it whatever the hell you want to call it. They certainly did it yesterday. They looked much better in all three phases of the game. And in a word or two, guys, how did that game make you feel? What were you thinking, David?
Warm and fuzzy inside. That's what it was. That's what it made me feel in a couple words.
Yeah.
I thought clutch. I mean, that was a big game. They had to have it with the schedule coming up. That was a big win. Clutch win.
Yeah, I clutch, warm and fuzzy. Those are good things. Timely. I mean, I would say that timely based on what the rest of the schedule looks like. Mm-hmm. That's in a word. That's necessary. That's another word that pops to mind.
Fair business.
Yeah.
That's all.
Holiday magic. That's all I can say. It's the magic of the holiday season. It was a lovely thing. Nothing is better than beating the Browns. I don't care how terrible they are. I don't care whether it makes that big of a difference or not. I thought it was amazing. We do have a couple of kind of newsy items to talk about real quick before we get into talking about the offense and the defense. So I think the biggest news that came out of yesterday, other than the win, was the fact that George Pickens suddenly didn't play the game. So I guess he injured his hamstring on Friday, showed up on the injury report, and there was a lot of speculation about what that might be. Right before the game, Mike Tomlin told Tracy Wolfson, we're hoping to play him. This was like 45 minutes before the game or an hour before the game, and manage his snaps. And then all of a sudden, right before the game starts, we find out that he's out for the game. Then you hear from the reporters today that I guess he never really even went out to warm up yesterday. So I'm not really sure why Tomlin even made the comment he made. If he wasn't even warming up, he's not playing. So then this morning, Jerry Dulac broke the news on WDVE that Pickens might be out for longer than that. It's not definite yet, but he called it a grade 2 hamstring strain and said that, sometimes that takes an upwards of 3 to 4 weeks to heal even. So he doesn't think he should expect to see him during the Philadelphia Eagles. Also from news items and injury items, Ogunjobi was injured during the game. I'm assuming we'll find out how badly and what that looks like tomorrow during Tomlin's press conference. And then it looks like we've got Montravius Adams possibly coming back next week. It sounds like from Brian Bacco today, we might see Corey Trice play next week, although I guess there's some question marks about where exactly he'll fit in, and we'll probably talk about that more in our Philadelphia Eagles preview. But guys, what did you think, Dave, when you heard all of this about Pickens, and what were you thinking?
Me, I'll go. Bob and I went on early to do it live, and to his credit, he was more optimistic than I was. I was very nervous with George Pickens out that this offense would crater, and to my surprise, guys like Van Jefferson and Scotty Miller stepped up. Shocking. But yeah, let's hope it's not a long-term thing. I know a lot of people are speculating on maybe a suspension, but I think that's gone by the wayside now. I think it's pretty clear he was injured. It's the one guy they could not afford to lose. And hopefully it doesn't look like he's going to be back next week, but they should use caution and keep him out as long as necessary.
Yeah.
When we woke up and saw the news.
Say again, please. Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah, I was. It took a minute for us to set up the stream and react, but yeah, I felt like we were going to beat Cleveland anyway. Got Mike Williams on track a little bit. I think he took the place of the go ball. It's definitely not the threat of having Pickens in the game. There were some things as we go along I'll talk about that I wasn't really a fan of when you were trying to replace Pickens on the fly there. But at the same time, the average score of Pittsburgh versus Cleveland for in Pittsburgh for Mike Tomlin is 27-14. We won the game 27-14. We held exactly to form. So
Nice.
I'm very happy that we won the game. It was a nice, realistically, we cannot expect to beat good teams without George Pickens consistently. That being said, maybe the defense goes out and has a monster game. I really don't like that Philadelphia played a close game against Carolina. You got to figure they're going to be loaded for bear when they play us this week. So we'll talk about that later as we go. But yeah, I mean, realistically, if sitting Pickens this week, it really boils down to last night with Kansas City doinking that field goal in. The chances of us getting the 1-seeder are virtually nil at this point, unless Kansas City just suddenly drops a game and we beat them on Christmas Day. The big key will be try to host Buffalo rather than visit Buffalo in the divisional. So I don't know that I necessarily want to see Pickens play this week if it's even remotely, hey, there could be an issue. I'd really rather see him back against Baltimore.
Yeah, I think this highlighted what the strength of this team is, and that is whatever way you want us to win, we're going to win. If we have to win only on field goals, we'll do it twice. If we have to win without George Pickens, we'll do that. We have to win without Alex Highsmith, we'll do that. We are going to find a way. It might not be pretty, and it might be scrutinized all week, but we will find a way to win.
It's exactly the way Mike Tomlin wants it, right? He's in his glories right now, winning with
He loves
defense, rejects on offense, a veteran quarterback. This is what he dreamed about. This is right in
I
his
thought it was
wheelhouse.
interesting that Tomlin made a comment that, I guess after the game or whatever, that, he said all along that he's comfortable with this, receiving group that they've got, and, something to the effect of like, do you believe me now? And my first thought was, well, then why were we trying to get Brandon Ayuk and, Devontae Adams and all of this? David, what were you thinking?
Like, what is that, like when you deal with like a death, the first result is shock, and then it's depression, and that was me waking up. I had to work that night, so I wake up, I get, I rub the sleep out of my eyes, and I'm like, I'm sorry, what? He's not playing? So, I was not happy. I was like, yep, we're fucked. But you know what? They pulled it out. I was really down. I thought we're screwed, but no, they pulled it off. So I was pretty happy.
Yeah. Can't complain about that. We're going to, like I said earlier, talk more about it next week, later this week, but John brings up a good point that that's actually 59 years, and he does come back and correct himself in the next message. The Steelers need to show up in Philly like the Brits did in 1777. GP or no GP. No excuses.
That's
a big excuse, buddy.
Reference.
That's a
big
Ready to go in
excuse.
his pocket.
I love it. And then, this one too, from in the Kansas City could drop a game and lose to the Steelers. They barely won last night. Rita's a horseshoe up his ass. And I thought it was a rabbit's foot like Zach, but horseshoe, rabbit's foot, whatever it is.
Yeah.
He's certainly got a referee up his ass.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Well,
Charlotte agrees that we need to show up in Philly. She said, I think we have a chance if there's a chance that Pickens plays. You know what? Even if Pickens doesn't play, I'm really hoping for the fact that, like, they sleep on us like we've slept on other teams in the past, and play down to a team or whatever you want to call it. And so hopefully, we're able to do some things to kind of catch them by surprise.
Well, if you go off of when he got injured, right, it was the 6th, if I remember correctly. I was looking at the dates of the games, and he'll have 2 weeks rest and then play the Ravens the next day. And the Chiefs, he'll have 2 weeks rest 2 weeks and 4 days rest.
Right.
So he doesn't get that much difference of a rest between those two teams. So I don't, me and Dave, I think we're talking about this on Twitter. Like, are they resting him to play the Ravens? Because if you beat the Ravens, you've won the division. It's over.
Yeah.
You've won the division no matter what.
I meant to make a note.
What they're doing.
I forget who somebody said earlier had a grade 2 hamstring injury and played, took off a week and then played and was fine. So, it isn't outside the realm of possibility. Pickens has never missed a game in his career until yesterday's game. And so I think it's entirely possible that he's ready to go. certainly by the game against Kansas City. Like Bob said, I agree. I don't want to rush him in if he's not quite ready. I think we need him too much to take any chances, with him, with his health or whatever.
Yeah, and Bob Pompiani talked about this a bunch this morning on the Joe and Bob show. He's like, hey, we've got to, we have aspirations this year now. They're real aspirations. There's a good chance we'll win the division. There's a good chance we get a home playoff game. We need to start looking at what do we need to do to get to a home playoff game versus Chase. Yes, a nice victory in Philly, but does that really do anything for us in January?
Yeah.
No, a healthy Pickens. They talked about Cam even starting to rest Cam, although Cam only played 61% of the snaps yesterday. I think that's ideal for this rotation going down the stretch because you're probably going to want to play him, 80% against Baltimore.
Yeah.
But if you can get by with 60% again next week in Philly, then we get him full for Baltimore and then rest him a little bit against the Chiefs. And hopefully the Bengals will, I don't think they're going to lose tonight, but hopefully the Bengals will drop a game so that it's absolutely meaningless and maybe we're just playing backwards.
Yeah. All right, let's switch back to talking about the Browns because we got a lot to talk about. A lot of good things went on in that game, even without George Pickens. It wasn't a complete nightmare. And so I think one of the first things to talk about is that yet again, Russell Wilson had a fantastic game. I mean, Russ was out there cooking. He looks like the Russ of old. I heard Arthur Moats was saying today that, the difference between him with somebody believing in him, with a team believing in him, a coach believing in him, a city believing in him, has just like totally changed. Just even the way he, outwardly presents himself is just remarkable. So Zach, what did you think about how Russ did?
I was impressed again when some of these rollouts that he's doing and the athleticism and the fact that we're using him and options. I mean, we didn't see Justin Fields. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think we saw Justin Fields at all. Nope. So I'm just really impressed. And I was watching the tape back before we got on, and just the little veteran things that we needed, that Ben used to do, the moving people with their eyes and then getting what they needed to, he's doing. And I've missed that. I've really, really missed that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, he had 101.1 passer rating again in the hundreds. Another thing I looked at too is that this game, he had the most rushing attempts that he's had all season that he's played in. He had 6 for 17 yards. That's the most he's had. So I think that's also a sign that he's, now really 100% healthy and feeling like himself again. Made some really nice throws. Again, another throw to Muth that was really nice. I don't know if you guys saw, his last name's Acho. He did a playback of that play to Muth where he looked off the safety to get him to draw left so he could throw a dart to Muth.
Yeah.
These are just things that we just didn't have. And we have this now. And he's been awesome. I'm so happy with him and for him after everything he went through.
Yeah.
I think one of the big keys of the game is he got rid of the ball fast, right? It was, I looked it up on Next Gen Stats. It was 2.64 seconds to get rid of the ball. That's like his average is 2.9. So he hurried it up, and that was a big deal. We were all worried about Myles Garrett after what he did to us last time. And I think being decisive, getting rid of the football, if he can keep doing that, the sky's the limit for this team. I'm really excited about how he played this past Sunday.
Yeah. Big Poppy's not wrong. I'm fully on the Russ bandwagon, 100%.
You have to be at this point. I mean, he's done everything you've asked. With not a great, supporting cast. Good, but not great.
Yeah, I also think that they're being very smart with how this whole let Russ cook thing is how he got in trouble in Seattle and a little bit in Denver. You do not want him throwing the ball 40 times a game. You just don't.
No, they're not going to let him do that.
Yeah.
Not unless they're way behind. They're
right. The let Russ cook. And I really thought that Romo had a good explanation kind of for it when he was talking about it. It's like the Steelers will be contenders because that one drive in the second half where you need to put it in the quarterback's hands, they have a quarterback they can trust and put it in his hands. And it was a good point. It's not that they're going to want to try to do the Bengals game against good teams and, just go tit for tat and go back and forth and try to win a 44-38 shootout. First of all, the only team I think they'd have to play like that against in the playoffs is Buffalo. I don't think Kansas City's equipped for a shootout. If anything, you might want to drag them into a shootout because as great as Mahomes is, they don't have the weapons to keep up. If we got Pickens out there, we get in a shootout with Kansas City, I feel pretty good about that. Just as long as it's not a one-score game with him getting the ball
tempt
left.
fate.
Be careful with what you ask for, but I don't want to get in a shootout with Patrick Mahomes. I'll a hard pass on that one.
Even during Tom Brady's down years, I wouldn't want to, risk something. It's speaking it into existence. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying speaking
Kansas
into
City, I don't
existence.
think has scored 30 points all year.
Can we talk about Bob being positive?
He talked me off the ledge Sunday morning. I was ready to jump. George Pickens was out. I'm like, I'm done.
And you guys are jumping him for it. He's being positive. This is good. Bob, I'm with you, bud.
Yeah.
Bob wants to shoot out with the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game now.
Well, first of all, that's because I don't think the Chiefs can score 30 points. I think we can.
I think they can, Bob. I mean, that team could explode at any second.
They haven't done it all
Patrick
year.
Mahomes, man. They haven't. You're right.
Bob's right. They haven't done all year, but now they have Pacheco back. He's gonna fill himself again sooner or later. That's the part I worry about with them.
Yeah.
And remember, these Chiefs are this is still preseason to them. It's get to the playoffs.
That's a good point.
Your season starts.
That's a good point, Zach. They're just going through the motions right now.
I take it back. They did score 30 points one time against the Panthers.
Okay.
So that matters. They can turn it on whenever they want in the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. So John brings up that in 2018, the Killer Bees averaged 26.8 at their peak. Currently, the Steelers are averaging 24.8 and climbing. So it isn't all the defense. I think it's fair to talk about, this game yesterday with the ball being spread around. So even when we had George Pickens in the game against the Bengals, I think he threw it to 10 different receivers. So, he's getting people involved. It's not just, like Mahomes and Kelsey show, he's getting other receivers involved. And I think, they did show that, we've got the ability to be able to win some games, even without George Pickens. And I think, that's got to start being a scary thing. John says that too. The GP knows that they can without him. That makes me wonder, is that maybe a good thing for Pickens, to know that he isn't the moon and the stars entirely. And so did the Steelers. So that's a win-win. He says they can beat Philly, sans GP. It's a mindset. So we'll see. But how do you think they did yesterday? Spreading the ball around, all those different receivers, and that wide receiver group in general, without Pickens, David.
Yeah, look, here's the thing. I think we'll be fine. Look, in this game, the receivers, Miller and Williams had 35-plus yards receiving in this game. Who would have thought that was going to happen? I didn't have that on my bingo card. I can tell you that much. They outshined Austin and freaking Van Jefferson. I didn't see that coming, guys. So I feel better about this situation than I did before yesterday. I'll tell you that much. I said it yesterday, and I'm going to say it again. Williams being forced to play in this game is going to pay huge dividends for this team moving forward. Mike Tomlin was forced to go out of his comfort zone and play someone that hasn't been with the team long. And look what happened. He made a one-handed catch. He looked good, I thought. Now, is he George Pickens? No, of course he's not. But did the guy look like he could definitely be a legit number 2 moving forward? Absolutely. So against the Eagles, I'm not feeling great about it. But, I think we could, we got a puncher's chance. I'll give you that.
I don't think we should get too far ahead of ourselves here and start comparing this team to the Killer Bees. This is the Cleveland Browns. Let's settle down a little bit. We're talking Antonio Brown, Martavis Bryant, Le'Veon Bell.
I was not comparing them to the Killer Bees.
No, but Edberg was there, or one of the guys in the chat. Look, it's all fine and dandy against the Cleveland Browns when Jameis Winston's turning the ball over a couple times and they're getting great field position. I'm going to wait and see how they do against the Eagles, the Ravens, and these other good teams, the Chiefs. I'm not a believer in these other receivers yet. Mike Williams did okay. Is this sustainable is the question, and I'm still skeptical on that.
Yeah, 8 guys caught balls. Jalen led the team in targets with 5, but he only caught 2 of them. Muth, which Okay, look, Muth is your number one guy. We talked about this when we were live about Pickens. Thought it was going to be a big day for Muth, and he got a touchdown. That's nice. Why is your number one option chipping on Myles Garrett? I understand that might have been the plan going into the game, but once you knew George Pickens couldn't play, that's Darnell Washington, McCole Pruitt have to do that, and you got to go put Pat out in the slot or something. I didn't understand that at all, and it was one of the things I didn't like. But
And
at the same,
you know what the worst part of it, Bob, is it's half-assed every time he does it. He's not interested
it
in
is.
chipping, blocking. My man wants to go out and catch passes. That's what he wants to do.
He sticks like a little elbow
Yeah.
out there. Like,
Yeah, he threw that elbow out at him.
Excuse me, sir. I'm trying to get through here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get that, and now, in fairness, though, Arthur Smith had about 90 minutes to prepare
Yeah.
for life without George Pickens. I mean, technically, Friday afternoon he had to start thinking about it, but it became a reality right before kickoff. So let's see what the plan is against Philly. I don't the idea that these receivers all of a sudden, but then again, the Carolina receivers are pretty bad, and Adam Thielen's probably better than anything we got right now without Pickens. So I don't know. The hope, and we will definitely talk about this on Thursday. The hope is that Jalen Hurts has a stinker like he did yesterday. Then maybe all of a sudden we have a chance. This offense, though, early in the game, Russ was getting rid of the ball quick, but you could see it. He was sailing balls on the go route. They called him for that intentional grounding, which is kind of BS. But there was, hey, I'm going to get it out of my hands quick, but there was nobody to throw it to, so he was having to throw it away. I think it hurt his completion percentage a little bit too. He's still really good, and it wasn't that he was missing throws; it's that he was throwing it away.
Yep.
And this, I never discount how important it is for a group of people that have to overachieve just to produce in the NFL to really kind of come together and believe in themselves over a long period of time. And I think this, I'm gonna use the word I have on it, this really scrappy group of receivers that if they have tuned in to any media from Pittsburgh at all this season, pretty much aren't real NFL receivers. That's what everyone's been saying. And yet they all showed up. And they showed up in really difficult catchways. I mean, some of those catches were that one-hander by Mike Williams. So I'm really, really, really impressed. So the whole thing about Freiermuth and I'll get into that whenever we talk about Garrett, because I saw stuff on tape. But as far as the receivers, really, really impressed, and makes me feel better if they're not going to go against Philly. I would prefer it with Pickens, but these guys, they can do something if they feel confident in themselves. And this is a confident group right now.
So what did you guys think about the play calling in yesterday's game? So like Bob pointed out, that Smith didn't have, a week to plan for life without George Pickens. Obviously, you're right. He would obviously have something in reserve for that. Knew that the reality that was possible before we got to Sunday. I'm sure he knew sooner than we all knew, but he had to adjust on the fly and make some changes. So we'll talk about Cordarrelle Patterson, as a separate segment. So maybe other than that particular situation, how did you feel about the play calling, Dave?
It was pretty good. I mean, the goddamn toss to Najee. We got to get an intervention or something and get him to stop doing that. Short of that, though, yeah, he used what he had pretty well. I think that was one of his better called games. It was a little shaky early on. I think he still struggles with the Browns defense, but they got it going in the second half. I was reasonably pleased after that.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I would say is, I think they had a plan at the beginning. It wasn't working, and Russell, rather than forcing it, was like, okay, we'll lose a possession or two, and we'll just kind of wait for something to happen. The turnovers were a huge key to them, scoring and kind of making, getting a little bit of distance. I thought they did a pretty good job of scoring touchdowns versus field goals. I like 3 touchdowns, 2 field goals. I would rather have 3 Buzz field goals so I could hit the 30 like I predicted. But overall, it was okay. I mean, here's my quibble. Without talking about Patterson, it was obvious who the most effective running back was yesterday. It was Jalen Warren. He should have been in the game the entire second half. They really didn't use him in the first half, which is what bugged me. But then the second half, I mean, stop it with the. I mean, I get it. I like Najee. Hey, you want to have him be a bulldozer, but I mean, Jalen's ripping off, and then you just kill momentum.
Yeah, I don't. They've got a preset rotation. It seems like, and I don't like it.
No.
Yeah,
ride the hot hand.
Actually, that specific thing, I'd like to jump in before we. And this is coming from I watched enough tape to make sure my Najee apologist got out in the unbiasedness, and I saw something during the game that I thought I recognized, and I wanted to check tape, and I'm really, really glad I saw it. This is where play calling is so important, where Arthur Smith is really doing us dirty. Because when Warren is in there, the defense is thinking this has a chance to either be a run or a pass. We have to look out for both. When Najee is in there, they're thinking this is going to be a run.
Yeah.
Arthur Smith is calling Najee plays cutely. And when Jalen is in there, there's a lot of times when there was pass blockers are run blocking a pass rush, which is the easiest thing for an offensive line to do if you want to open up gaps. And I was looking, I'm like, why does it look like the offensive line is blocking better for Warren than for Najee? That can't be the case. Najee had good vision in that game. He was finding the holes. If you look back, it wasn't on him. He was doing the whole thing before, throwing 4 or 5 guys off before he gets to the line of scrimmage. The play calls were doing Najee dirty. Najee did all he could to make it, but it wasn't a case of one running back being better than the other. It was our offensive coordinator couldn't call the right plays based on who was in. Even the Warren plays weren't great play calls, but because the defense wasn't sure if it was going to be a run or pass compared to Najee being in there, that specific things on Arthur Smith, not on Najee and Warren.
Well, Najee caught 6 balls, though, last week against Cincinnati. So, and you could arguably say it was very important to the game plan. Initially, those little dumps to Najee that he turned into 8, 9. He averaged 9 yards a catch.
Yeah, but to Zach's point, they should do more of that. They need to do
no,
more
I
of that.
agree.
They
It's
weren't
too predictable.
And we'll get into that when we get Garrett is a big reason they weren't there. We'll get into that when we're weirdly enough, our plan for Garrett took away certain things. So, but yeah.
Literally all 3 of you hit on what I was going to say. Yeah, look, the second play call to be a toss to Najee was just stupid. Like, the thing about it is that he's not using these guys for the right play. On second one, if you got Najee, run it up the fucking middle. He's your ground and pound guy. When you're going to do a toss, use Jalen. He's your speed guy. And CPAT, never use him again. Anyways. And then, like, just in general, I did love the play call. Like, when he brought Jalen Warren, he brought him in motion to run the wheel route, but sent the 2 receivers on fly routes to draw the defense back. And then Jalen Warren was right there and just took off after he tossed him. That was a beautiful play design. I love when he does that kind of stuff. But, man, does his player personnel he decides to choose to put them for certain plays is horrendous at times. How about when you have Calvin Austin III out there blocking for a wide receiver screen? Not smart. Like,
when he's the
he's
moonball
no Scotty
guy.
Miller.
No.
When he's the moonball guy, they do that to him
Yeah,
2 or 3
but
times a game. It's like,
yes, but that's
why are you throwing the moonball to him?
Right, and that's my point, is that just have the right people out there for these plays you're going to call. If he would just get better at that, I think they would do even better, honestly.
Doesn't it feel like he's got a preconceived idea of Najee's going to get these downs, then it's going to be Jalen Warren, then it's going to be CPAT, then it's going to be Najee again. It's like, and that's why, and then when he wants to call a play, he's got the wrong guy in there because he's pigeonholed himself into.
But Bob's right. This stuff not playing Jalen Warren in the first half, what are you doing? Like, he is a
That's
weapon.
part of that weird plan. I don't get it.
He should be a weapon used all the time. Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
They're very different wide receivers, which is what I think, running backs, which I think is what a lot of the fan base doesn't get. It isn't always about, like, one is a better player than the other. They have different skill sets and strengths. And I feel like, sometimes that, like David says it, but I think that gets in the way too. Do you know what I mean? Of what they're doing. Zach, were you saying 007 wants to know, or he's having Najee in there making things predictable?
It's not that having Najee is making things predictable. We have the offensive line if we wanted to run it up the middle with Najee and be predictable. But when we have Najee in there, we're doing these weird, either they're delays or they take too long or they're tosses all the time. We're trying to be cute when Najee's in there when it's not very big. Not saying Najee's Jerome Bettis. Let's get that out of the way. It's a similar situation. When he's in there, you know what to do. Run him up the middle. When Najee's in there, especially on 3rd and 1, second, run him up the middle. So that's what I'm saying. It's not Najee. It's the fact that we're not doing the right things. We can be predictable and we can be successful. We're just not doing it the right way.
Yeah.
I don't think we run the ball nearly enough between Zach and Isaac or Zach and McCormick. We run way too
100%.
many outside to the tackles,
100%.
which is the weakness of our line.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about Cordarrelle Patterson. You know, he came here. He was with Arthur Smith in Atlanta. He holds that record for the most kickoff returns for a touchdown with 9. But at 33 years old, it's starting to feel like Father Time is catching up to him, and he just doesn't have that zip that he used to have. I think, you know, he and Smith obviously have a really good relationship. They speak very highly of each other. So you would certainly hope that isn't getting in the way. But when you see things like the fumble, when you see that he runs the ball and winds up with 2 yards or something, 3 yards like he did yesterday in total offense, it's hard to understand why we're still playing him. So, Bob, speak to what's going on a little bit with him.
Well, first of all, I don't think it's Father Time that's caught up to Cordarrelle Patterson and Chef Boyardee. He is playing heavier than any other time I've seen him in his career. And I like him. I like him going all the way back to the Minnesota days. He's just chunky now, which, you know, he's 33 years old and he's still, but we don't see the burst. Now, in that Colts game, you could arguably say he's the guy who started to bring us back when he had those, you know, nice runs. But, you know, Arthur Smith kind of got in trouble in Atlanta last year with a little too free use of Cordarrelle Patterson when he had Bijan Robinson and Algier. So it's not unprecedented. I just wish, first of all, it doesn't matter what I wish, because when you fumble the ball, Mike Tomlin is going to take care of that problem. He's not Jalen where it's, okay, he's so good, I got to take the risk. Hey, you run Jalen, you run Najee, you put the ball on the ground, you know, you're the 3rd string running back. You ain't going to see. Now, he is also a wide receiver technically. And
I think those days are gone.
Yeah, he still wears 84.
Yeah.
But we may have to play him out there just because of, you know, he's the only other guy at this point besides Mike Williams, I think, who's over 5'4" in the receiving core. They're just, you know, that experiment needs to be over. I don't know why Arthur Smith loves Cordarrelle Patterson. I mean, I get it. 3 years ago, he's probably a great weapon. Even last year, he's a pretty good weapon. Even last year, if you look last year to this year, this is a different guy. He doesn't look the same.
Najee Harris has excellent ball security, so I don't know why we'd ever not have the ball in his hands like we normally do when we're trying to close out a game like that. Like, that was mind-blowing to me. I'm sorry, Zach, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's okay. I want to make sure David gets his rant in, so I'll be really quick. 2024 Cordarrelle Patterson equals 2023 Patrick Peterson.
Yeah.
Same thing.
I wouldn't go that far.
Veteran, you bring it. No, I at this point, I think it was a little worse because maybe it's the same because due to injuries, Patrick Peterson had to play safety, which is out of the position we got him for, and Cordarrelle Patterson ain't returning kicks, which is to me what we got him for. So it might not be exactly it, but to me, that's the closest comparison, a veteran that you brought in to do certain things. Now, I don't know about what he's doing behind the scenes. I'm hoping he's a good veteran leader, but that's how I personally saw it. But I wanted to make sure David could get his rant in.
Yeah, look, just purely looking at yards per average this game, Jalen Warren was 5.2 yards per carry, and then Najee was 3.3. And then CPAT on his 4 carries was 0.8. He didn't even average 1 yard. Like, what are we doing? Then receptions, he had 1 reception for, guess what, -1 yards. And then you throw in the fumble on top of it. Yeah, I don't know what we're doing here. Like, just stop.
Yeah, it's pretty simple, right? You have 2 great running backs. you have Jalen Warren and Najee Harris. Cordell Patterson should not touch the football unless one of them is hurt. He should not be in the game. It's very, very simple. The guy, it's not like you're struggling. You need snaps from this guy. And we were sold on this guy's the kick returner. We signed him. I think Mike Tomlin said, did you see the rule change? That's why we signed him. The guy hasn't returned a kick all year. Did they not know he was 50 pounds overweight when they signed him? Did they not? I'm totally baffled by the whole, and I was, Dave knows, I was the last 2-3 seasons, I wanted him to sign Cordell Patterson. But I wanted the Cordell Patterson from 23, 22, and 21. I don't want the 2000. I'd rather have one of the guys off the practice squad, honestly. If he's not returning kicks, he's useless.
He should just be the team recruiter. Like, just be that. He's really good at that.
Yeah, he does that on Twitter, right? Let him do that.
Just be that, please.
Yeah, give him a clipboard.
Yeah.
In fairness, nobody kicks to him. Nobody.
They should kick to him.
You would think so.
That's why I don't put him out there, because I'm afraid I'll kick to him. I don't know. It's baffling to me.
Yeah. Charlotte brings up that she knows we all hate the Chiefs, herself included, but look at what they do with Travis Kelce and Noah Gray. Andy Reid knows how to alternate them, and unfortunately, look how successful they were last year.
Yeah, I that today. Freiermuth is on pace. If he finishes the season with his catch rate, he catches 88% of the balls that are thrown to him. It'll be the second best in NFL history, behind the Robert Tonyan Green Bay Packers from like 5 years ago. So, he catches the ball when you throw it to him. I don't know why we don't use him more. Especially, we have to use him more until Pickens gets back. That was the point we talked about yesterday. That's why, this whole chip. You got Darnell Washington. You want to chip Myles Garrett? Forget that. Put Darnell Washington over there and say, hey, run into us, Myles. Come on. Let's see what you got. Let's see you beat two basically tackles over there.
I put this up just so I could see David's face when he read the comment.
I'm not a military guy. I wouldn't.
Dave doesn't need any encouragement.
Yeah. I'm not a military guy. That's the other David.
Yeah, that's the other one. So let's talk a little bit about Myles Garrett. He's come up a few times today. He's so weird, but he never stops talking shit. It's just annoying at this point. He had a lot of comments to make about, Steelers fans and, about their performance and then all of that, as well as let's talk about, while we're doing that, talk about the way our O-line handled him this game, because that was certainly much better than in the snow globe game. So, Zach, what did you see from what all went on with Myles Garrett?
Well, number one, you're absolutely correct. I was so happy with what I saw when I watched the tape back, because I was wondering why I wasn't noticing him. So, while watching the game, I'm like, I assume we're doing something. I'll look back and see why. The Pat Freiermuth thing, I don't think that was originally in the game plan. But I think when George Pickens was ruled out and Arthur Smith scrambled a little bit, I think this comes back to Arthur Smith. I don't think he was fully ready for George to actually not play. I think he was fully ready. And when it happens, he had to scramble a little bit. And I can legitimately see him going up to Pat and saying, listen, if you're next to Garrett, just give him a nudge and then do your thing, but focus on your path. But give him a nudge when you're going by. It's a half-hearted passing thing he told him to do. Therefore, Freiermuth executed in a half-hearted way. That doesn't explain the other ones, but this particular one I'm watching, Pat was specifically focused on that. But our way to get around Garrett, and they were right in the game, and I'm mad about that because I don't like Tony Romo, but we went at him, and they weren't ready for that. We threw at him. We did a chip and then went around him. Everything was the opposite of what he was expecting. And unfortunately, a lot of times that didn't work, and we had to get the ball out with the times when I think the Freiermuth thing would have worked. So it is there. It's going to be there with times when we play teams without Garrett. So.
Yeah, I thought, honestly, I said they needed to give him the TJ Watt treatment, and I thought they did. I saw a bunch of different times he was getting double teamed. And think about it. He didn't do shit for the first, 3 quarters? And then he finally, when we changed our scheme up a little bit and let him go 1-1, then he finally got that sack. And it's you got it in the fourth quarter, dude. We're up by 2 touchdowns. Shut the fuck up. Don't act like you did something great when you did nothing when the game was 2 touchdowns out of hand. So to me, that was my thing. They did what they needed to do to stop him for the most part. before the damage, was already done, that they could do anything to us. So I thought they did a great job. I really did. The chip thing with Muth, yeah, but as far as focusing on him to stop him, I thought they did a great job.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about Myles Garrett anymore. I'm sick of him. You're 3-10. He's already talking about next year. It's always next year for the Cleveland Browns. Let's not talk about Myles Garrett ever again.
I will tell you, I have to send it to you guys, though. I forget now. I can't remember who did it. I think it was Adamski did a piece called what they were saying this morning, and it was like snippets of what the Cleveland media were saying after the loss, and it like warms your heart. Like,
yes.
Is it next year already? Like, is anybody enjoy? Is it only like non-fans that are enjoying the Jameis Winston bullshit? Like, it was fantastic to read.
It's bad when they go, we got a better draft pick next year. And it's like, yeah, because you are losers. Like, don't you understand that? And you suck at draft picks anyways. Like, quit talking shit about that. You're idiots.
That is not the brag you think it is.
No.
Like, I would fight with Patriots fans because I'm here in New England all the time. But at some point, when they're on their 6th Super Bowl, I just had to shut up because they're winning, and that's what the Browns fans have. You just have to shut up until you do something. Right. Because otherwise, you're just annoying.
They're bragging about that one game where, Ben's career. And
they hang on that.
That's their big brag. It's like that one time we beat Tom Brady or whatever. Like, just stop.
I mean, and the Patriots kind of cheated on a couple of those. So there's that.
Absolutely. But still,
I mean, if you look at it, I mean, our good friends from Pro Football Not Focused, they looked at Myles Garrett. They gave him a 90 grade for the game. They gave Dan Moore the worst grade of 40.1 and Broderick of 40.8.
Yeah, how?
I don't understand. I mean, the only real impact Garrett had on the game was kind of that meaningless sack towards the end.
He was invisible, completely invisible the whole game.
Which is, the guy who had the most sacks in the game for both teams was Cam Hayward.
Yeah.
Myles Garrett won 23% of his pass rushes, according to PFF. Cam won 4. So how am I to believe the 2 sacks on only 4% where he won is somehow less productive than 23% you winning and you only got 1 sack? I mean, I don't get it. I mean, part of it was Russell. He kind of helped the line out yesterday. He most mobile.
Getting rid of the ball.
Getting rid of the ball. Yep.
I love the fact. I don't know who talked him into it or if he did it on his own, just to keep Justin Fields on the sideline. When he ran the Justin Fields play with that little RPO and took off, I was like, "What are you doing? You're gonna get your." Oh, it works.
Yeah.
I was like, but I was holding my breath. I was like, you're going to get yourself killed running that. You're not 25-year-old Russell Wilson. You're 36-year-old Russell Wilson. Let's not do that too many times.
He looked good though. He looked younger. He looked a lot better. 6 attempts, like I said, his most rushing attempts this season. That's a great sign, guys. Really.
Really quick, I wanted to touch on something that I'm hoping doesn't come back to bite us. And I'm going to specifically look at it my second go through on the tape. It didn't bite us. There was no consequence to it. But there was sometimes when I saw Broderick deciding when his play was done. It didn't bite us. It didn't hurt us. But there were, because Najee either got by the guy faster than the guy, but that was a regression. Only regression I saw. So I'm going to keep my eye on it. But it had a concern. Didn't bite us, no consequence. But I just wanted to bring that up. Make sure that we had it on record.
Yeah.
All right, let's switch gears and talk about the defense. We spent a lot of time on the offense, and there's definitely a lot of good stuff to talk about in the defense. And I think we have to start with the return of Alex Highsmith and just what a huge difference he makes, in every facet of this defense. Zach, what were you seeing from Highsmith's return yesterday?
It's every single reason why we paid him. He's not the TJ. That's not what you want. He's responsible. He knows exactly what to do on each play, and he can still wreck the game. And I missed him in the run game because even if he didn't, make the play, he has that edge covered. It made me so proud. And there was actually one specific time. I don't know if I saw it more than once. I'll go back and check. but Alex Highsmith was over there, and Herbig and Watt were on the same side together on the other side. So we're having fun with our formations. So Alex isn't just coming back; he's back, and I'm excited.
Yeah, look, all I gotta say is welcome back, Alex Highsmith. I mean, the pressure was there right off the bat. You saw him; he smacked Winston one time, didn't get penalized. Then he hit him again, then get penalized. He wanted to let him know he was there. He had 2 tackles for loss. He had a sack. And then on top of that, we talked about him stealing the edge, him being better than Herbig. Chubb didn't have a big game. He only had like 48 yards. He had one big run of 19, and that was it. So Chubb didn't really have a big impact in this game either. And I directly think that Alex Highsmith was key in that. I really do. So I'm really glad he's back. I'm really excited for the linebacker core with him back and what they're going to be able to do.
Yeah, this is pretty exciting when you have all 4 guys healthy and going, man. They can rotate. They can give guys breathers. They can do 3 outside linebacker, things like they did. This is awesome. And I know we all love Hall of Fame Herbig, but Highsmith's just that little bit better, a little bit more explosive. Maybe not more explosive, but just more consistent, better against the run. Yeah, it's great to have all 4 of them healthy and going for the rest of the season. Hopefully.
Yeah,
He's elite. Sorry about that.
I think seeing what happens when Alex, Herbig, TJ, Cam, Keanu Benton are all out there, you get a lot of pressure, and it comes from everywhere. And that's how we have to win games. I mean, our secondary is not built for the quarterback to sit back there and survey the field. I mean, our defense is predicated on all those guys getting home. If TJ doesn't get home and Alex does, no big deal. If Herbig gets home, no big deal. And I still think we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what we could do with Peyton Wilson. And I like to see Patrick Queen occasionally go up the middle, but honestly, I could live without him blitzing. I think he's right now where they are in their careers. He's probably a little better in coverage than Peyton. I don't think that'll last forever, but yeah, I would blitz Wilson, and I wouldn't blitz him up the middle. I'd blitz him off the edge because, again, for those who don't know, he's our fastest guy on defense. I mean, Herbig's great off the ball, but Peyton's straight line speed is the fastest guy.
Right. No, you're right.
We're getting pressure with not. There was the play I mentioned where TJ and Herbig were on the same side. Herbig didn't blitz. Herbig dropped back. The only pressure came from Hayward, from Highsmith, and from Watt, and that's where the Highsmith sack came from. So that was the 3-man pressure. So we're getting pressure with not a lot of pressure, and I like that. So
that's Alex's thing.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's Alex's thing. Good.
Yeah. The one thing that really stands out to me is that, and the players all say this on every team, we just want to win. It's not about us. But you see something different in the effort they give and the attitude and all of those things. And this defense keeps saying that, you know what I mean? This isn't about individual stats. We don't care who has them. You know what I mean? TJ isn't worried about, I'm sure he'd love to have it, defensive player of the year. Do you know what I mean? He's worried. They're all collectively worried about winning. And I feel like for the first time in a long time, that really, really shows on this team. David, what did you think about Joey Porter Jr.'s bounce back this week from his, game of penalties last week against the Bengals? He seemed to reel it in a lot this week and yet be effective. What did you see from him?
Well, look, my thing was I was concerned about Judy, right? I thought he put up 250 yards last game against Denver. Comes in this game, I think he only had, 58 yards receiving or 68? So way big more improvement, whether JPJ was lined up against him or Jackson Moore. So I thought for that part that Joey Porter Jr. did better. He still had, I think, 1 penalty, maybe 2. I can't remember.
A dumb penalty.
So
no, it's just 1.
It's something now you're just going to have to deal with. Really, he's going to have a penalty in the game. But the fact that he was more shut down this time on these receivers and didn't let the big 3rd and 4th down conversions happen like they did 2 games ago against Cleveland, it was good to see. Look, they only put up 14 points. We've been giving up how many points last 2 games? So, yeah, definitely a lot happier with JPJ and the secondary in general.
Yeah, I agree. The secondary was better in this game. The pass rush was a lot better too, so I think that had a little bit to do with it. But yeah, Jerry Jeudy had 64 yards and a touchdown. He's been awesome. I think when we talked about it in the last, he's averaging over like 110 yards in the last 3 games receiving.
Yeah.
He had 200 something the last one. So keeping him to that number was good. It's an okay secondary. It's not a great secondary, and JPJ is definitely the best of the bunch. Again, it's just he's got to stop taking penalties. If he can do that, we'll be fine.
Yeah, I really thought there were a couple times though where I saw him and it almost seemed like he was consciously keeping those hands at his side.
Good.
Kind of to his detriment. There's a happy medium between I'm not going to touch anybody to, I am touching too much. Let's, what's that old, was that AC/DC song, A Touch Too Much? He's got to find that, balance. I mean, overall, the one penalty was dumb. The guy shoved him in the face. He's got to do what the Cleveland guy did and fall over and, oh my God, I got hit. I understand though, it's an emotional game, and his dad certainly never learned that lesson. So I guess it's a little much to ask him as well.
His blood.
Yeah, it's definitely in his blood. I thought he was.
Yeah, but Joey
good.
Porter his dad didn't have a lot of penalties, did he? I mean, besides the crazy stuff in the fights, but during the game, there wasn't a lot of unnecessary
It was a
roughness.
very different game, though.
Yeah, that's true.
It was.
That's a good
Could
point.
not do the
That's a good
shit
point.
that he did now. It
Different
was a
game,
very different game.
I know he had.
So
He flew off the handlebar a couple times. I could see your face the way you're looking at me.
Yeah,
But
maybe a couple of times when he tried to fight the Browns and the
whole
Buccaneers
team.
and everybody else before games. Yeah,
his father was one of my favorite players of all time. I loved him.
Oh,
Absolutely loved him.
I loved his dad watching him play, but I think even the biggest Joey Porter supporter will admit that he wasn't playing with a full deck, But
That's what made him good.
At least on Sundays.
I
Did
think
we
the way
notice
to
that-
describe this.
Okay.
What was that about?
Go ahead, Zach.
The way to describe the secondary and the defense as a whole is everybody had one play where I would go, that was a bad play, and then they learned. That was the difference in this game. There wasn't repetitive bad plays, at least on the defense. Because that first touchdown, I will normally defend Minka to the end of it. All Minka's fault, 100%. Dude completely misread where the route was going. Watch that play like 8 times, and you don't see Minka look silly a lot, but on that, and then after that, shut the middle of the field back down again. JPJ got beat really badly on one play on the left side of the field. After that, I think shut it down a lot better. So that's what I want from this defense. And that's what I saw, especially in the secondary. They're learning. Good communication, too.
And didn't you know, though, it was coming, though, when KZ dropped the interception? I was like, here comes a touchdown. It never fails. You drop an easy turnover, you give up points.
Yeah.
Did you guys notice Beanie Bishop snapped Cam Sutton like 56-15?
I was going to ask that. I
don't know what their strategy is with those two guys. I'm kind of confused with it.
Because Beanie Bishop had 6 tackles yesterday. I was like, wait a second. And then
And he looked lost in coverage a lot though too.
Well, he always looks kind of lost. I don't know. It just always seems that way.
It's true.
Me and
It
Green
kinda
brought
makes
up
sense with
Keanu
Elijah
Benton's
Moore, right?
interception, and I thought that was awesome. And I love that after the game, he was like, "Yeah, I've been keeping that in my pocket for emergency or whatever he said." That was amazing. I loved it. Like a nose tackle getting an interception.
He read the screen was coming and
that
jumped.
was a great play.
It was a great play.
Yeah. The other interception that Pierre had, Winston said, "Look, all I'm going to say is that was a great pass. And, we all just need to be where we're supposed to be." And I was like, ooh.
Great pass.
I was like, okay.
It was 10 yards.
Wow.
What?
Throwing
Well,
somebody under the bus there.
yeah, it
Yeah.
sounds like he was saying the receiver ran the wrong
Yeah.
route.
Because the first one about Benton, he said, I never saw 95. Like, he came out of nowhere. He read that whole thing. Do you know what I mean? Completely gave Keanu Benton credit for it. But with the other one, it was like, obviously, the receiver was supposed to be, went somewhere he wasn't supposed to be. Yeah. He threw that right on him. So talk to me, guys. Do we think that this defense is elite? Bob, is this defense elite?
Wouldn't say elite yet. I'd say very good. I'd say definitely. I feel like they're a top 5-ish, 5 to 10-ish sometimes. And we're going to see this week. I think there's a chance they'll get worn down. But if they go out in the first half and Saquon Barkley only has 30 yards, then yeah, I'm going to start leaning elite. I think the whole team. This is what I actually love about this year and this team. I don't think we've seen anything near what this team can do. I think we see glimpses. I think we see shades. I thought TJ yesterday when Chubb got the ball and just came right in the backfield, set the tone for the game, and said, "Nope, you're not running the ball." I think we see glimpses. We haven't played a full great game in all three phases yet, in my opinion. And what I'm hoping is that it will be like our deep playoff runs, that's going to happen the wild card round, the divisional round of the AFC Championship. Could we go to the Super Bowl? Yeah, the fan of me says, yeah. But hey, if we play our best football in January, we win a playoff game or two, this is going to be a great success.
I agree with Bob. I don't know if it's elite yet, but also there was some really good conversation going on Twitter, especially from Chris Carter, about why people need to stop being hard on this defense for the kind of quote unquote consistent late scores. Because he brought up that a lot of people say that right now the pinnacle is the 2008 defense, and they allowed a lot of late scores too that a lot of people are just shrugging off. And if we don't come back in that Super Bowl, then 2008 is about how that defense let us down and allowed the late score to Larry Fitzgerald. He's and I want to specifically point out, because I don't often toot my own horn, and I think Leanne also did it too. We call exactly how this defense was going to allow points. One big demoralizing touchdown early on, and then one late one that wouldn't be enough. And that's as the first one that happened, I'm like, breathe, you called it. Last one that happened, I'm like, oh, I'm talking about this on the podcast. So, but elite, maybe not yet, but goodness, we're a Super Bowl worthy defense. I don't know if that you need to be elite to win a Super Bowl, but we are a Super Bowl worthy defense.
I would throw a question out before everybody else answers. Can any defense be elite in this NFL?
That was going to be my point. I don't think you can have those elite defenses like we had in 2008 because the rules have changed.
Is way up. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And I think that the offenses prevent most teams from reaching that. So I think that no matter what you do as a defense, even those really good defenses, you still hear. I mean, we even heard it like last year. Cleveland's defense, right, was really good. But then you even still heard, well, they got exploited in this way, or the Steelers were able to do this against it. So you know what I mean? So to me, that takes away that comment of eliteness. I thought that I usually don't like him, but Chris Long made a good point today, and he was talking about like his tiers of eliteness right now, and he was saying that like he sees the Steelers as like 1B, like you're not quite where the Bills and the Eagles are, do you know what I mean? But you're right there, like really close, and I thought that was like a good way to put it, and that's kind of how I view it with this defense. I think that potential is there, and they just got to keep showing up. They find ways to get it done. I don't know. If that doesn't make you elite or very good or whatever you want to call it, what else does? When you find ways to get it done, you find ways to win.
Yeah. They're as good as any defense in the league. They are. Just leave it at that.
Love in the comments here from now. Relic is here, so we're going to talk about Van Jefferson.
Let's not talk about Van Jefferson, please.
Yeah, look,
I mean, Jesus Christ.
I don't like the never for Relic. Thanks for joining. We appreciate it. Buddy.
Yeah, Relic brings up that our defense is ranked first in takeaways, and that is elite. And I agree with that 100% because, we won that game yesterday. I mean, it was takeaways. Sometimes takeaways are always a factor, but yesterday takeaways were like a huge factor. All around were very good, not elite. Elite wouldn't let Judy score yesterday. I don't know.
And also elite. And also, Relic, remember, I mean, we all remember the James Harrison return. They were at the goal line. There were moments. That defense, bend and don't break, is the Steeler defense I know. It could have been different before that, but it's starting in 95 or 96 when I really start remembering, it was bend and don't break. If they get into the 20, cool. We're going to do something to stop them. We're going to cause a turnover. That doesn't worry me as much. But we got to figure out a new way to determine if a defense is elite. I'm
Well, I
gonna
like
look.
that
I'm gonna look at
Mr.
it.
Dummy's comment about define what elite means and then compare that against the Steelers. And I think that that's a really valid point because that is such an elusive, like, and just, how do you define that elite? And then are you not elite if you lose a game?
I can define
You
it.
can define elite.
Yeah, I can define it. So 08 and the 2010 Steelers were top 3 in every statistical category. Okay. So for the Steelers, this Steelers team, they're 7th in yards per game at 310.2. They're 4th in rushing yards per game at 91.5. They're 5th in scoring at 18.3. Here's the big one. They're 18th in passing yards per game, which is 218.6. That is why they are not elite. They are not.
The secondary is not good enough
three.
to be elite.
They're not even top 3 in any statistical category. They're top 5 in 2, top 10 in 3. But then when it comes to passing, they're almost towards the bottom tier.
Really?
So
that's surprising. I didn't know the 2005 and 8 were. I didn't know their pass defense was that good. I know I knew running.
The 8. I said 8 and 10. The 8.
Oh, 8
and 10 teams.
The pass defense were that.
Yeah,
good?
we can't compare them.
They were
to those teams.
That's fucking elite.
Yeah, this
is not elite.
I agree with that. Okay, we've got some comments here that I've starred that I want to go back to. If one of these speaks to your soul, speak up. Mean Green says, should the Steelers wrap up the AFC North before the end of the season? Do the Steelers rest players going forward into the playoffs? Anybody feel
They should, but they won't. Tomlin won't.
Well, it depends. Is there still a seed to fight for that's a higher seed?
Yeah.
Because that matters, man. That really
as long as there's something to fight for, I think we're playing players. I think if it gets to that Cincy game and we've done whatever we can do and that game statistically doesn't matter, I don't think he'll play off.
I feel like I'm learning the stick shift.
So
I'm learning the stick shift that has to come with the strategizing about the playoffs and all that. It feels weird. People are like, well, you have to think about the playoffs. We're like, no, we have to get it. I'm like, oh, wait, it's not the last week of the season. We can plan and strategize like other teams do. So I'm still not there yet. I'm getting used to the fact of where we are. So I haven't caught up to it yet.
Only game they rest players is the Bengals game. That's my prediction.
Anna Lee brings up that Myles Garrett shushing the crowd and then the Browns immediately fumbling is the funniest sequence ever because the Browns are going to Brown. We didn't really talk much about Myles Garrett talking trash, but I love that, and she is not wrong.
I'm going to have to put a disclaimer on this episode for my dad.
Yeah, I love that.
The DPOY thing that Charlotte brings up here, I heard one of the odds makers was talking about that on Friday with Starkey. It's not that TJ's, for TJ's kind of having a down year. It's just the other guys who are candidates are not on very good teams. Myles Garrett doesn't have much of a chance because his team stinks.
Yeah.
So, and some of the other guys, he's like, TJ might actually win this by default, not that he ran away from the candidate. He ran away from the field. I mean, I guess maybe, Mac or Bosa out in Los Angeles.
What about Cam Hayward? I'm serious. He's like a sack and a half behind TJ Watt right now. He's having a phenomenal season.
It won't happen, but it should.
What does he have to do to get there? What does he have to do?
If he has more sacks than TJ Watt at the end of the season, he should get it.
He's a wrecking ball. No,
he's like a sack and a half behind
beyond
right now?
his years.
Yeah, how often do D linemen get it though?
Probably.
Well,
it's been a while. Defensive tackles.
Aaron Donald.
Joe got it.
Aaron Donald. That's a good point. I forgot.
Yeah.
We should have remembered that one.
But he is like a freak. But then I feel like Cam is. Do you know what I mean? And I have to
at 35. Absolutely. This is crazy.
After the injury, and we talked about this before game. I mean, is Cam even a candidate for comeback player of the year coming back from that massive injury? He won't be, but he should be. Anna Lee brings up another really good one. She's on fire tonight. Rex Ryan shockingly brought up a great point. That all the teams in recent years with good records, who had good records, winning by one score, ended up blowing it in the playoffs. I think the Chiefs will blow it.
Chiefs are different though.
To God's ears, Anna Lee.
Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. They're different. That's a whole different. I think Zach's point earlier is 100%. They're just going through the motions right now. Their season starts when the playoffs start. They're not even, they're bored at this point. They're just waiting for the playoffs to
We
start.
we can hope though, but we can hope that
Yeah, we can hope.
they're
But
frauds in there this year. And
It's like the Penguins. I remember those 17 years. It was foregone conclusion. The season didn't matter what happened. Shrug it, the playoffs, then you kick in. So
we got to bring up
it's
the Pens right
different
now.
when
They're
you have that
depressing.
mindset.
Yeah.
I
Poppy would
Poppy
like
doesn't-
Arthur Smith to put Cordarrelle back in the box for Christmas. That's what he
Yeah.
would like. More Najee and Warren, please.
Yes.
Charlotte said that she thinks Jalen Hurts has an amazing offensive line and amazing running back. I think our defense can expose his weaknesses, which in my opinion are throwing the ball. Sure, he can throw an occasional dart, but And there was another from John who said that Jalen Hurts is a trailer, not a tractor. He needs supporting cast and can't elevate the team himself. I thought that was an outstanding announcement.
Well, I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that.
that
in a little
lot.
scuffle with his wide receiver, right? His wide receiver wasn't too happy with him.
Wasn't too happy with him.
AJ Brown, he was a little ticked off after
this-
the game.
There's
Are
talk.
we in Philly?
Yeah,
Yeah, we're in Philly, unfortunately.
That's the issue. That's
Yes.
the issue. 50
I know Bob brings up all the time that we haven't won there since '65.
Whatever it is.
I saw today Russell Wilson's undefeated in Philadelphia, 4-0.
I did an article on that yesterday.
Oh,
I
did you?
couldn't believe it.
All right.
Yes. It was in one of my articles that, while we have that curse on us, maybe we finally have the Philly kryptonite in Russell Wilson because he's perfect in Philly and perfect against the Eagles.
Wow.
You lost to him.
Wow.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, let's hope that holds.
Yeah.
that's it. I'm making Philly my lock of the week.
Oh boy.
Surprisingly enough, did you realize that was the first time Jameis had ever played in Pittsburgh in that game yesterday, which I hadn't quite realized. So then I looked it up and realized that the first game in Cleveland was the first time he'd ever played the Steelers.
Really? That I didn't know.
I didn't realize that. I had to look that up. Mean Green also throws some love out to Chris Boswell, the best place kicker in the league. He
100%.
outschools other kickers at Heinz Field, way better than the Wizard of Boz. Yeah, he's amazing. I don't know. We feel very lucky. You look at these other kickers, and we just have to feel lucky. John also brought up that Kansas City's O-line is ass. Both tackles are struggling. They can be beat like in the Tampa Super Bowl.
In that game, that's the key to the Steelers' victory. 100%.
Yep.
Their edge rushers against those tackles.
Yep.
It was the chicken that I was more worried about, and I thought would be more litmus test. They'd flip Eagles now. I think we have a very, very good chance to handle the Chiefs well. Eagles are the test now.
Yeah.
The Eagles is almost that's if they win that game, fine. But it's I'm more focused on the Chiefs and the Ravens later on. That's an NFC game. Pickens might not play. If they win, great. But
Yeah.
I
I'm more
just tell
focused on.
myself that game just doesn't, in the grand scheme of things, is not the thing that matters most to us. Like looking at that 3-game stretch, if we can't win all 3 games, that game is the one that matters.
That's the one you drop and move on.
If you have to drop one, you drop that one. Of course,
Yep.
like all of us, like Bob, I would love to see us win in Philly. Like that would be tremendous. I have some Philly friends that I would love to shut the hell up. But, if that's the one you drop, I much prefer to beat the Ravens, beat the Chiefs, than worry about Philly. John,
maybe see Philly down the road in a neutral field.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Wow. Let's say that. Maybe that's the answer. Then we'll really shut him up. The 70s defense would be in jail for attempted manslaughter today. He is not wrong. And on that note, guys, it has been a great episode. You have any final thoughts, any parting words, anything you need to get off your chest before we wrap it up?
I want to shout out Mean Green because you brought up John's comment about the 70s defense. He pointed out the 76 defense might have been the best defense in NFL history.
Yeah, I had that, I think, up on the screen earlier, but absolutely elite. Yeah, and we appreciate, man, so many new people tonight in the chat.
Yep.
That was amazing.
Awesome.
We appreciate Relic dropping everything to show up and set that appointment with us. And Charlotte and Lou, Big Poppy, everybody that jumped in the comments. It means a lot.
If we were a restaurant or somewhere that took reservations, this preview episode is the one you want to get here early for. This is going to be a fun one. There's a lot to talk about, and we're going to be nervous as hell.
Yeah.
So you get to all see a sweat bullets while we're
got a
talking.
certain ex-Stiller that we're going to have to talk about here, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's hope he plays.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot. We're gonna have to talk. Oh man.
In the first half.
Yes,
Kenny
yes,
Pickett.
Zach. Absolutely.
Man,
Get it over with.
Yeah.
Get it over. We hope we see him, right? Like we'd love to meet up with him a little bit in Philly. That would certainly help our chances
Yeah,
of winning.
throw that guy in the
I,
game, please.
I'd prefer to play Pickett. Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's make
I'd
that
rather
Please
happen.
throw him in the game.
P8,
Yep.
but it is what it is. We
They
will
think
be
Jalen
back.
Hurts is bad.
Right.
They ain't
We
seen
will
nothing yet.
back on Tuesday night, tomorrow night at 6:30 to do our good, bad, and ugly show for the Browns game. It's going to be really hard to find bad and ugly unless we just focus on the Browns. Maybe that's it. The ugly is the Browns and the bad is Myles Garrett or something like that. Then we will be back on Wednesday night to talk about the
Wednesday morning to do the
Wednesday morning to talk about the Hard Knocks episode.
Hard Knocks.
We're
Yep.
not time yet, but we'll get that out to you guys. And then Thursday night with 6:30, we'll be back with our pregame episode, getting ready for the Eagles game. So we love to see all of you there. Please join us. We hope that you will. If you followed us this far, please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also like, share, and subscribe to all of us on social media, as well as the Steelers Sanctuary page and the Steelers Sanctuary podcast page. We really do appreciate everybody's effort tonight. Guys, thank you so much.
In case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Yeah.